You might have seen the XP number on the thumbnail for this video and thought to yourself, well, 4,300 base XP. That's not so impressive these days after the CV rework with all the planes flying around. They massively increased the number of planes flying around, of course, but they did not decrease the XP earnings that you get for shooting down those planes. And as a result, the XP earnings, at least in matches where CVs are involved, are somewhat inflated. But of course, there are no CVs in this match. Instead, what we've got are 8 destroyers, 4 on each team, 8 battleships, also 4 on each team, and then 2 cruisers with 1 on each team. Not the best matchmaking you've ever seen. And unfortunately, the destroyer on the blue team that spawned directly behind us is AFK right now, and he's going to remain that way for the entirety of the match until he sinks. So really, the blue team only has 3 destroyers versus the enemy's 4. And a lot of people do like to complain about these high-count destroyer games, but don't worry. In my experience, they often turn into 1 or 2 destroyer games on each team within the first 5 minutes. And I think that's going to be true here. The Reds are going to lose destroyers pretty quickly. But for our part, we spawned on the Alpha Cap. The Alpha Cap is turning red, and we know exactly where the enemy destroyer is due to looking at the minimap. We can see that our concealment circle covers the entire northern part of the Alpha Cap on this side of the 2 islands, and we're not being spotted, which means the Shimakaze can only be in one place, and it is a Shimakaze, spoiler alert. It's where I pinged on the map. Of course, that destroyer is AFK, so he's not going to be able to push into the cap on that side and maybe spot the Shimakaze for the battleship that's pushing into Alpha. And I don't think it's worth it for us to cross the gap there right in front of the Vermont. We might pick up that destroyer, but then the Vermont is going to be able to shoot at us at point-blank range, and we'll probably lose a lot of HP. So for the moment, we're going to sit in the cap contesting it, while the other friendly destroyer on the other side of the map, which I believe is a Yugamo, who's going to have a pretty good game himself, he's sitting in the Charlie cap doing the same. And in fact, he's up against 2 destroyers, so the fact that he manages to survive this and do as well as he does by the end of this game is quite impressive. If only there were a complement system in World of Warships Legends, I would have given him a +1. In any case, Kleber is a ship with a long and storied history in this game. When it first debuted, it had an 8-kilometer torpedo range, but now it has 6. And, well, ever since then, I feel like people don't play it as often as they did, but it's still very, very workable with this 6-kilometer torpedo range. You just have to get into a place where the enemy ships are pushing into you in order to land these torpedoes. And, of course, you could build for concealment more than I have. I've got a 6 km concealment range, so I cannot really stealth fire the torpedoes unless the enemy ships, like this Stalingrad, are pushing in. Stalingrad there eats a face full of torpedoes, 3 of them in total, and it takes away most of his HP, 41,000 damage done from that single torpedo salvo. He responds with a radar and inexplicably does not shoot at me when the radar reveals me. Instead, he elects to shoot at the mostly angled battleship behind me, which is an interesting choice to be sure, and one I appreciate. Since he's not going to shoot, we are of course going to open up with the main battery guns. We instantly light a fire, which is permanent since Stalingrad has used his DCP to stop the flooding. And hopefully we can get another fire. But Stalingrad is pushing forward, giving far too much broadside, I think, to our friendly battleship, and thus he's headed back to port. That clears the game and the cap of the only radar cruiser on the red team. So at this point, maybe we can push back into Alpha. Vermont is pushing through it, and it looks like he may end up turning out of it. The destroyer that originally took it is the Shimakaze over there, and we can see he's no longer inside of the cap. He appears to be headed toward Delta, and we could pursue him, but I think instead the best thing to do would be to secure Alpha, because it does look like the Vermont is turning out of it. We hit him with a torpedo earlier. I don't think it caused any flooding on him, but maybe we can get some damage and some fires with our guns. We take a couple of pot shots at the Shimakaze as we go, but our primary goal is not to pursue him yet. We want to end up taking the capture circle. The Reds have secured this one, but no others, and nobody has yet secured Charlie. But it does look like the Yugamo over there, in tandem with the Battleship next to him, have taken out the other two enemy destroyers. So it's only the Shimakaze left, and we know generally where he is, so we can deal with him later. The build that I have on Kleber, I'll put that up as we begin farming the Vermont, who, again, is not going to elect to shoot at us at all. So this is basically free damage as we wait for him to leave the cap and flip alpha. But the commander I'm using is the gunboat-focused French destroyer commander, Louis Voilet. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing his name. I apologize if I am. But he is a gunboat-focused commander, and for his inspirations, I've got Blue, and I've got Luigi Rizzo. Blue increases the speed of the destroyer by 4%, and Rizzo increases the duration of the engine boost consumable. So this is a max speed build Kleber. Before the engine boost, we can go at just over 50 knots. With the engine boost in place, we can go into the mid-50, high 50 knot range, which is ridiculously fast and makes us incredibly hard to hit. So the idea is we can push in very quickly, especially towards ships that are pushing into us, launch our torpedoes, turn back around, wait to see if the torpedoes hit. If they do, great. If not, all right, we can farm them with our guns as we run away. And much like the Khabarovsk, because we're so fast, it's very difficult for them to hit us. Plus, the Kleber's guns have a very good fire chance. They don't have the fastest reload, but if you do need a quick reload, well, then you've got 2 charges of the main battery reload booster consumable, and you can deploy that. We will end up using both of them, I think, before this match is over. We just haven't found the opportunity to use one yet. Probably the best time to use them is, of course, against enemy destroyers, and there is still one of those left. He's in the Delta Cap right now. He has been spotted. I think our Carl Johan might be picking him up with sonar. I'm not quite sure there, but Carl Johan looks like he's going to put an island between himself and the Delta Cap to prevent eating any Shimakaze torpedoes, which I believe is going to be good for his health. But it's only a matter of time before the Shimakaze discovers the AFK destroyer in our spawn and sinks him, which is not all that much of a problem because, of course, that AFK destroyer is completely useless to the team, but his sinking will be useful to the Reds in the sense that it will give them points, and as you might have noticed, they are ahead of us on points. Plus, we've only got 2 battleships left. They've got 4. And our 2 battleships are probably not going to be long for this world. Luckily, though, the blue team has both myself and the Yugamo, and the 2 of us together are going to end up doing quite a bit of work. Yamato, like the Stalingrad before him, is pushing in. He doesn't seem to be aware of our presence, so we launch some torpedoes. We're thinking about maybe taking some shots at the Vermont, but no, not yet. Not until those torpedoes hit the Yamato or get closer. The Shimakaze does unfortunately pick us up briefly, and Vermont tries to shoot, but we're so fast that we're able to outrun his shells there. Turning around to launch the torpedoes off the other side. Kleber really does have ridiculous torpedo angles, by the way. You can almost launch them completely forward or backwards. 3 torpedoes on the Vermont, 173,000 damage and counting with the flood. Shimakaze did discover the AFK destroyer. He's spotted by it, which is really the only contribution that destroyer has made this entire game. And that's good. That allows us to see him. We deploy the reload booster, and as long as we can land these shells, Shimakaze has absolutely no chance. I think he wasted all of his torpedoes against the AFK destroyer, and they are going to end up taking the guy out. But that's going to leave him with no defense against us, and we, of course, are playing the game, so it's a little bit more tricky for him to deal with us. We go dark as we go around the island. Shimakaze takes a shot, comes out of the smoke screen. He saved 1 rack of torpedoes for us, but they were wide spreads, so not too terribly difficult to avoid, and the Shimakaze gets sunk. The enemy team no longer has any destroyers. We're sitting at 201,000 damage done, And we have the dream scenario. We're mostly full health, and then we are facing off against 4 battleships. They have no destroyer presence, so they have no way of spotting us unless we want to be spotted. And even though they are just a little bit ahead on points, well, the Yugamo is in Bravo, flipping it uncontested. We hold Charlie, nobody's going for that. We even hold Alpha, and the Yamato is close to it, but not inside of it. So if I get into Delta, that's going to completely halt the accrual of all enemy points, and we're going to have another cap to our name to start accruing points ourselves. So it won't be too long until we overtake the red team on points. But we have to be careful here. We do have Yamato and Lepanto both pushing in, so we've got to keep an eye on both positions on the minimap and not let them get within 6 kilometers of us to spot. We can let them get close enough that we can launch torpedoes, of course, and more torpedoes are coming the Yamato's way. Hopefully they'll end up hitting. We can start creeping away from them to make sure we don't get spotted. And then, so long as we take this cap, things should be good. And from here, all we really have to do is torpedo these battleships as they push in. And if we get an opportunity, we can farm them with the guns as well, which I think we can do fairly safely, considering our massive speed. Although we are out of engine boosts. Still 1 reload boost left, though, and we will make use of it. 5 torpedoes, by the way, connect with the Yamato and take him down for our 2nd kill of the game. We're up to 241,000 damage done now, and there's still opportunities to do more. We've got Lepanto left and whatever the other battleship is. Oh, we still do have 1 battleship player left alive on the blue team. It does look like he's reversed all the way to the map border, and the red battleship is chasing him there. He manages to take him out. So that just leaves me in the Yugamo versus Lepanto and the other battleship. But really, even with 3 minutes left to go in this game, these guys have absolutely 0 chance of winning. Lepanto can get into the Delta Cap and try to flip it all he wants. We don't even really need to defend it. There's no way the battleship, the other red battleship, is going to be able to turn around and get over to Charlie in time either. So we're going to overtake these guys on points, and the only hope they have of actually winning is sinking us. Lepanto makes a bit of a mistake. He smokes up and then he blind fires his guns, which means he's spotted inside of the smoke screen. His other battleship teammate is too far away to spot us, but we can see him, and his smoke screen is blocking his vision of us. So we're able to farm him with complete impunity. He takes another blind shot, but it doesn't come anywhere close. Well, actually, it was fairly close, to be fair, so not bad, but still, no connection. Lepanto DCP's a single fire. His smoke screen does look like it's about to run out. We end up using the last reload booster there. I don't know how much that was worth because we end up getting the permafire right there without the reload booster in place, but hey, at least Lepanto is burning now. And there's a double permafire. Lepanto's aim is on point. He does manage to catch us with 1 shell, but the further we get away from him and the faster we go, the more difficult we become to hit. He tags us again there, I think, actually, with another shell, but it's just overpen damage, and we end up sailing far enough away that we're out of the detectability range, we go dark, and Lepanto gets taken out by a Yugamo Torp. That just leaves 1 battleship left with just under 2 minutes left to go in the game. Yugamo gives me a well done, which I appreciate. We have racked up 264,000 damage done now, along with the High Caliber and Witherer medals. In fact, I think we got the Witherer from the flooding, really, rather than the fire. But as you can see, these guns do light a lot of fires. We've only landed 239 shells, which, to be fair, that is a large number, but not as many shells as you would land using something like maybe the Khabarovsk, which has just a slightly faster reload than the Kleber. Still, though, 11 fires, a lot of fires there, and a good number of floodings and torpedo hits. So on this Yamato, we really don't have to do anything to him at all. I suppose we could push in further and try to get the torpedoes on him, but frankly, I find it much more satisfying to be an annoyance like this, to shoot at the enemy battleship with my guns and bait them or invite them into shooting back at me so that I can avoid their shells with my crazy speed and just irritate them. There are few things more satisfying in this game than that. Another fire on the Yamato. which is just icing on the cake here as far as damage is concerned. You might look at this as a little bit reckless, but I don't think it is. We have too much HP. There's no way the Yamato kills us in one shot, and there's no way he lands all shells in one shot. In any case, 13 seconds left to go. Do we actually hit 1,000 points, or does the clock reach 0? I don't know. But in any case, I would say this is a pretty thorough carry on the part of the Kleber, which, even though it was nerfed long ago, is still a fantastic destroyer. Probably one of the best at Legendary tier. And I think, at least in terms of XP earned, this is my personal best in the Kleber. 284,000 damage done, Confederate, Witherer, High Caliber, and 4,311 base XP. Yugamo, by the way, got some pretty good XP himself at 2,500, and even the... what is that? The Veneto? I can't actually read the names of the ship. The screen is too strong. One battleship, though, and something else. 4 people. Over 2,000 base XP on the blue team. Pretty nice to see, I think. Hope you thought it was nice to see too. If so, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.